Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Miss Deana King. And Deana, the class of 2024 train is in full motion for North Carolina football recruiting, with Andrew Rosinski, the third member of the class to pop here in the last couple of weeks. He's a 6'6", 260-pound offensive lineman, left tackle, more specifically from Creekview High School, Canton, Georgia. Just a few of his other offers that he chose Carolina over: NC State, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Duke, Vandy, ECU. So sort of a similar theme with this from some of the other kids, but I would love to get your take on Andrew Rosinski, how this played out. And I know you have a little information about where he was this past weekend.
Well, January is a huge month in recruiting, and North Carolina has really benefited from having groups of kids there, multiple days on the weekends. We talked about Evan Bennett and Desmond Jackson, the two other recruits that were there on the weekend of the 21st. Well, Andrew Rosinski, he came this past weekend on Saturday. And, Carolina just, I think it was beneficial being in a smaller group. He got full attention of the staff and got to meet with Coach Randy Clements and Coach Brown. And, he was excited. When he left UNC, he tweeted out what a amazing day he had at Carolina. So the visit went exceptional. Decided to be a Tar Heel, and is another Georgia kid. Coach Clements already making a huge statement, bringing in two offensive linemen already. So he's doing a really good job.
When I saw the tweet, I don't know if I reached out to you or not. Monday was an unbelievably busy day because we had Hubert Zoom for the ACC conference call, and I was over in Chapel Hill a long time. We got to meet the new cornerback coach and also the 9 transfer portal kids. So I was gonna send you something today about it and just kind of catch up on what happened this weekend. And sure enough, he pops. There was clearly an air of excitement around that tweet that is a little more than a lot of kids will tweet, "Hey, great time visiting, blah, blah, blah." But this definitely was a little bit different. So in hindsight, I go back and think, I'm not too surprised this kid went ahead and took a spot while he could.
Yeah, because when I seen the tweet, I was like, well, that's a little bit different, like you said, than a lot of other kids did. And I was going to reach out to him today, and bang, he committed first thing this morning around 8:00 in the morning. He wanted to get this done really fast. So I've looked at him on film. He's around 260, I believe. Got plenty of
leverage,
time to add some weight, and he moves really well. So we're just seeing a different type of offensive lineman being recruited by Coach Clements. I mean, getting Desmond Jackson, who most likely will play a guard, I believe.
Yeah. And
then a tackle in Rosinski. He's building, because, you got to have those guys up front. So just a good start. Three commits within, almost
2 weeks.
A week or two.
Week and a half, staying on Rosinski, and for full disclosure, we didn't know in advance that he, like you said, you were going to reach out to him today. We didn't know in advance that he was going to commit. I'd say 98% of the time we know in advance when a kid's going to commit, and we're prepared, but we let them have their moment. That's what's been interesting about the last week. I think this is twice in the last week where it's happening so fast that the impression that's being left on these kids after they visit is so strong, they're compelled to go ahead and pop right away and take one of those spots right away. And Rosinski was another one that did that. You mentioned him as a player. I watched some of his film this morning. You got to love the leverage. It's not hard to see what coaches like in him. He's very athletic. He's got a lot of leverage. When I watch high school offensive lineman films, a lot of times it's just them pancaking dudes that like me when I was in high school, and I was getting pancaked all the time by guys who played in college, right? So that doesn't really show me much. What really stood out about Andrew Rosinski, Deana, is the footwork, the athletic ability. They showed him pulling a lot, and he's getting in that hole quickly. The running back doesn't have to hesitate. He can hit the hole naturally because the offensive lineman, Rosinski, is already there. And there's one play on the huddle video where there's a back screen, and by the time the back catches it and starts heading upfield, Rosinski's like 15 yards upfield, and he blocked a DB, stayed on him, and allowed the play to go another 20 yards. So those are things that will catch your eye when you're a coach. There's a lot of 6'6", 260 dudes out there, but not many of them, at least on film, move like Rosinski does.
Yeah, and I'm just going to point out, signing day, the original, the old timey signing day is tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And Carolina's got 3 guys in the 24 class that, it's kind of weird. Like the whole recruiting cycle is just crazy. And, I know a lot of people have concerns about the stars and the rankings. And it's kind of, you look totally in the class of 2024, there's a lot of kids that have not been ranked, not given stars, even though they've gotten, Power 5 offers. And I think it's due to, with rivals camps and other camps coming up, it'll be a great time for, all of the recruiting sites and recruiting analysts, national guys to start giving those rankings. And I would not be concerned that Andrew Rosinski right now doesn't have any stars. If Randy Clements and Mac Brown want him at UNC, that should be all that the fans should care about, because we've seen it's not an exact science. We've seen 5 stars that don't turn out to be 5 stars. We've seen 4 stars. We've seen 3 stars that played like 5 stars. So it's not an exact science. I know fans love the stars and the rankings and everything, but it's basically down to the facts that of who the coaches think can play. When you see Georgia and Alabama offering 3 stars, you're like, well, wonder why they're offering 3 stars. Well, maybe they think they're 4 or 5 stars.
Yeah,
it's all subjective.
Deana, the thing about Rosinski and the rating process, and not just him, but a lot of kids, also these recruiting services, I know that I can speak for Rivals a little bit, they were so stressed in terms of resources with respect to the portal. So much emphasis was paid on the portal. I know that we have at Rivals, we have a portal guy, and I had more communication with him about the transfer portal than I did about anybody with recruiting and who Carolina was going after of the high school prospects. So that's also another layer of this as well, that they had to put all their eggs into the portal basket because it was happening then. And now that stopped. Now the next 6 months is going to be all about high school football recruiting and engaging these kids. So I think it's not just Rosinski. There are a ton of them. A much higher percentage of Power 5 caliber prospects in 24 are not right now compared to previous years. And I think that that's a big reason why. So 3 kids in the class already. We did a football recruiting show last week where we talked about sort of a change in approach by Mac. And I think that you're seeing that right now. It is absolutely playing out right before us. We don't really need to explain it because I think people who are fairly clued into recruiting can see it themselves. But they're taking kids, as you always say, kids that want to be there. And these kids obviously want to be there. And I think that they're trusting down the road the idea of the kid that wants to be there. He's less likely to leave, so roster management's a little bit easier, and they can be developed. And on top of that, I think Mac has totally changed how he uses the portal, that if you need to plug in some holes, the portal is always there offering you opportunities to plug in some holes while you bring in kids that you can develop that want to be there, that are less likely to leave. So I think this is a complete shift in how he built the roster before, and this is how he's doing it now.
And look at the positions that have committed: a linebacker and 2 offensive linemen. You know, there are 2 positions that maybe in the past North Carolina kind of got later in recruiting cycle. North Carolina's always going to get good skill kids, your quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, just because the offensive numbers that they have done since Mac has come back. But you like to see, a linebacker, and a couple of linemen. And, when they get that centerpiece who we have talked about a lot, a quarterback, then they can start putting the other skill people, building that, because that's who you build a program around, is your signal caller. And they've got some really good candidates, targets that they're really high on in recruiting.
There's no doubt about it. Plus, North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, as far as the kids that it turns out, it regularly turns out a lot of skill kids.
And this year, the wide receiver class is just it's probably one of the best I've seen talent wise.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many, in this state. So
Andrew Rosinski, 6'6", 260 pounds, plenty of leverage, plenty of quickness, really good footwork. Go check out his videos from Creekview High School in Canton, Georgia. He is the latest member of the class of 2024 to commit to North Carolina. She's Deana King. I'm Andrew Jones. We appreciate you stopping by.